The old compass pointed straight through a solid wall, while a stone serpent crushed the floor behind us.
"That is not an exit,"
Bram shouted. The compass snapped its lid on my thumb. It disagrees. The serpent's granite jaws slammed down where my head had been. I rolled, dragged Bram with me, and pressed my ear to the wall. No hollow sound, no crack, only black dungeon stone and a brass needle trembling toward it with such offended certainty that I almost apologized. 5 hours earlier, everyone in the Royal Academy had called that compass broken. In my previous life, a compass had killed me. Not a magical one. It had been a huge metal sign hanging above a travel shop. A storm tore it loose while I was pushing a child out of the road. I remembered 8 iron points spinning against the gray sky. Then came darkness, a sharp thought that north was a useless direction when you needed a way out, and a second childhood in the kingdom of Avar. By 16, I had almost convinced myself that memory was only a strange dream. Then I stood beneath the crystal dome of the Royal Academy's familiar ceremony, and a golden griffin meant for me walked to Dorian Ash instead. Solwing had appeared when my name was called. The young griffin was all white feathers, lion paws, and sun-colored eyes. He looked directly at me. A thread of warm light reached from his chest toward my hand. Dorian stepped between us and raised a red family seal. The thread bent. Solwing cried out. The sound was confused, not joyful, but the red seal swallowed the light and stamped Dorian's crest across it. Applause rose from the noble seats. Dorian smiled as if the world had behaved correctly. "A superior familiar recognizes superior blood," he said. I noticed Examiner Oren hiding his ink-stained fingers in his sleeve. Someone had changed the ceremony array. I could accuse the richest student in the hall, or I could avoid being thrown out before lunch. I chose the second option. "What happens to me?" I asked. Oren glanced toward a balcony where a narrow man in a silver half-mask watched us. "An unclaimed student receives a reserve familiar." The reserve table held 3 sleepy mice, a cracked practice wand, and a compass under a glass box. It was small enough to fit in my palm. Tarnished brass circled cloudy glass. There were no letters for north, south, east, or west. 8 empty notches marked the rim, and its single black needle pointed at my left boot. Laughter moved through the hall. "At least Vale will never get lost on his way to last place," Dorian said. Oren lifted the glass box. The compass needle spun away from him so fast that it rattled. When he reached for it, the loose lid snapped shut on his finger. I liked it immediately. "Does it have a name?" "It does not even have a direction," Oren muttered. "Take it and report for the lowest-ranked dungeon group. If you fail to earn 100 points in 5 days, your scholarship ends." The silver-masked observer left the balcony before I could see his face. I carried the compass into an empty supply room and placed it on a table. The needle pointed at the door. That was not north. North was behind me. I turned the compass. The needle returned to the door. I moved the table. It pointed at the door again. Observation: it ignored direction and preferred the nearest opening. Hypothesis: it pointed at exits. I shut the door, opened the window, and watched the needle swing toward the window. Then I closed both. It aimed at a ventilation grate near the ceiling. "You have low standards," I told it. "I cannot fit through that." The needle dipped, rose, and tapped the glass twice. I removed the grate and found a maintenance crawlway. It was narrow, dusty, and just wide enough for my shoulders. For a safe test, I locked myself inside a storage closet with 2 doors. One opened to the hall. The other opened into a deeper closet with no second door. The compass chose the hall. When I switched the signs above them, it did not care. When a groundskeeper shouted that the false door was safer, the needle wobbled but refused to move. I crawled through the maintenance shaft and emerged in the garden. The moment both feet touched open ground, warmth ran through the brass. One empty notch on the rim filled with a thin green line. I touched it. The compass spun backward. The garden folded into a narrow circle, as if someone had rolled the world around an invisible rod. I jumped back before the circle fully opened. Every drop of mana inside me pulled toward it. I slammed the lid shut and fell to one knee. The green line remained. "So you find exits," I whispered, "and you remember them." The needle gave one pleased click. I spent the next half hour learning what that did not mean. I placed a coin beneath a flower pot and asked for the way to it. The needle chose the garden gate. I asked for the quickest path to the dining hall. It chose the garden gate again, then spun lazily when we were outside. An open courtyard was not a trap, so it saw no problem to solve. I climbed back into the supply room and touched the green mark a second time. My mana had barely begun to return. Needle flattened itself against the opposite side of the case and held its lid shut. "You know it will hurt me." One click. "And you will refuse if I cannot pay." Two clicks. That made it less like a weapon and more like the rescue animals I had known in my first life. Helpful did not mean obedient. Intelligent did not mean human. I would have to observe the choices it made, especially when those choices annoyed me. I cleaned the cloudy glass with my sleeve. Beneath the dirt, a tiny symbol appeared at the center, an open doorway with a line continuing through it. Needle turned until that symbol faced me, though its black pointer still ignored north. "I suppose Broken Compass is a cruel name," I said. "How about Needle?" The lid stayed open. It was not approval, but it was not a bite either. My scholarship test began before I could recover. The academy placed me with the 4 students at the bottom of its ranking. Bram, who had a shield beetle afraid of loud sounds. Orin, whose water lizard produced warm mist. Tavi, whose rabbit could detect spoiled food. And Kess, whose wooden crow had 1 wing. Our task was to retrieve a blue stone from the beginner dungeon beneath the east courtyard. Dorian's elite group entered ahead of us. Solwing looked back at me until the gate closed. "Do not follow me," Dorian warned. "I will not rescue scavengers." The compass lid clicked against my belt. I had tied it there because it reacted badly to pockets. It hated darkness, boxes, and anyone who tried to hold its needle still. I had begun calling it Needle. The beginner path should have been simple. We crossed a mushroom hall, avoided 2 sleepy mud crabs, and reached a chamber with bronze bells hanging from the ceiling. Dorian's group had left red chalk arrows toward the right passage. Until then, my teammates had treated Needle like a fragile trick. The bell chamber changed that. Kess's 1-winged crow flew toward the red arrow and struck an invisible current that pushed it back. Needle pointed to a low stone alcove. Inside, we found the chain that stopped the current. Orin tested the next floor with warm mist. Where the vapor vanished, Tavi's rabbit sniffed out tiny holes meant to drain poison. Bram set his beetle over them like a living shield. Needle did not replace any of their familiars. It gave us a direction, and their so-called weak abilities made the direction survivable. "Why did the Academy rank us last?" Cass asked. "Because their tests reward breaking targets," I said. Bram tapped his shield beetle. "He does break targets. He just prefers targets made of lettuce." The beetle turned toward him with deep offense. Needle clicked from my belt. For one strange moment, our 5 rejected familiars seemed to share a joke at the Academy's expense. Then we found Dorian's chalk again. His arrow was fresh, but dust lay unbroken beneath it. Mira had not yet taught me to read tracks, and I was too focused on the point reward to ask why an elite team had left no footprints. Needle pointed left. The map says right, Bram said. The map shows the normal route. Needle shows the way out. Those may not be the same thing. We followed the map. I was still thinking of the time limit and the 100 points. That was my first mistake. The final bell rang behind us. The floor opened. We dropped into a black chamber while Dorian's laughter echoed from above. He had triggered the old trap after passing it. Whether he meant to catch us or only slow another team did not matter. The hatch sealed, and a stone serpent unfolded from the wall. That brought me back to Needle pointing at solid rock. I wiped blood from my thumb where its lid had pinched me and studied the wall. The compass could not make an exit. In the closet, it had pointed to a real crawlway. So something real had to be behind the stone. Bram, let the serpent strike here. That is your plan? My safer plan was not falling into its nest. Bram planted his beetle shield beside the wall. We scattered. The serpent lunged, missed us, and smashed its head into the exact stone Needle indicated. A round plug broke inward. Cold air rushed through a drainage tunnel. Needle's needle bounced like a dog seeing an open gate. Tavi crawled first. Oren followed. Kess pushed his wooden crow ahead, and Bram squeezed through behind them. I waited until all four were inside. The serpent turned toward me. Your turn, I told Needle. It pointed into the tunnel, but then it swung back toward Bram. He had stopped to help Kess free his coat from a sharp stone. Needle refused to mark a route that abandoned someone still inside the danger. That was not a command. It was a principle. I shoved Bram forward, crawled after him, and kicked the broken plug into the serpent's mouth. We emerged on a narrow ledge above a vast cavern. All 5 of us reached it. Only then did the compass rim grow warm. A second green mark appeared. Below us, the dungeon boss fought Dorian's team. The stone serpent had been its tail. Its main body was a giant statue shaped like a crowned lizard. Dorian and his friends had attacked it from the front, exactly as their expensive guidebook advised. Solwing tore bright lines across its chest, but every wound closed. Behind the statue, directly beneath our ledge, a blue core pulsed without armor. The trap's exit had delivered us to the one place the guidebook did not know. That blue core is worth 500 points, Kess whispered. And there are 5 angry students between us and it, Bram said. Dorian saw us. Stay there! That boss is mine. The statue swept an arm across his team. Solwing caught Dorian's coat and pulled him away, but 2 other students fell beneath a broken balcony. Dust buried the normal path to them. Needle pointed at the ledge, then at the maintenance stairs leading upward. It had already found our exit. It did not care about the core. I did. For one ugly second, I thought about leaving Dorian. Then I saw Solwing trying to shield the trapped students, while the false bond burned red around his neck. My personal goal had never been to become the strongest student. I wanted to build routes that did not leave the weakest person behind. In my first life, a stranger had lived because I pushed him clear. If this life gave me a compass, I would use it for more than revenge. We take the stairs, I said. We get outside, bring the teachers, and then use the remembered point to return behind the boss. Bram stared at me. You can return here? I can probably return here once. After that, carry me. We ran. The stairs opened into an emergency tunnel. Tavi's rabbit found clean mushrooms for Oren's lizard, whose steam revealed hidden tripwires. Kess's crow fluttered across gaps with a cord tied to its leg. None of them had useless familiars. They had only been given tests designed for other strengths. At the surface gate, the instructors refused to believe us. The dungeon map showed no lower chamber and no rear ledge, so I held out my hand. Everyone who wants to go back, touch someone in the chain. Do not let go. Needle shook. The garden test had frightened it as much as it had frightened me. Its lid tried to close. I will not force you, I said quietly. But people are trapped, and you found the road. I choose you even if this is the only thing you ever do. The needle became still. Then it turned toward me and tapped the glass once. I pressed the second green mark. Needle spun backward. The dungeon gate stretched into a ring of dark stone, though the ledge was far below us. My mana vanished in one cold pull. The opening became wide enough for our linked group. We stepped through behind the boss. I nearly collapsed, but Bram caught me. Orin sent steam across the blue core. Sudden heat made its shell expand. Tavi's rabbit squealed at the spoiled magic inside its lower half. Kess's crow dropped a cord around the cracked section. Bram's beetle pulled. The core tore free. The statue stopped with one hand above Soulwing. Dorian stared up at us from the dust. "You stole my victory," he said. "No," I answered. "We found an exit from your mistake." Teachers arrived through the emergency tunnel. They freed the buried students. The Academy awarded our group the boss rescue, the hidden route discovery, and the core. We rose from last place to 7th before sunset. Examiner Orin offered to replace Needle with a respectable flame fox. Needle snapped its lid on his finger again.
"We decline," I said.
The system's voice came not from the air, but from the warm brass in my hand. It told me that mutual selection had been recognized. A hidden class had opened, Exit Seeker. No fire filled my veins, no sword appeared. I simply felt the exact moment Needle accepted my grip instead of tolerating it. That night, a third mark glimmered on its rim. I had not made it. We had not found that exit together. The mark was shaped like the 8-point compass sign that had fallen on me in my old world. When I touched it, Needle did not open a road. It pointed through the academy floor, toward the central tower, and trembled like something below was calling its name. Episode 2. By the second morning, Needle had developed 3 opinions about breakfast. It liked sunlight, hated porridge splashed on its glass, and considered my closed satchel a personal prison. I woke when the lid repeatedly struck my chin. The compass had wriggled out of the satchel and climbed my blanket by hooking its clasp into the cloth. "You are a circle with one moving part," I said. "How are you better at escaping than I am?" Needle pointed at the window. The ranking bell rang outside. We had 4 days left to reach first place or lose our places at the academy. Dorian's group still held more than 3 times our points. I set a practical goal. We would chart the academy's abandoned west tunnels, claim the route rewards, and avoid any crossing unless lives depended on it. One return used almost every drop of my mana. That price had not changed after becoming an exit seeker. At the tunnel office, a girl with short brown hair was arguing with the clerk. "My route is accurate," she said. "Your instructor changed the markers after I entered." "A scout who needs markers is not a scout," the clerk replied. She dropped a rolled map on his desk. Every turn was drawn in crisp gray lines. Notes marked loose stone, nests, and water. It was better than the official map hanging behind him. "Then send me back without them," she said. The clerk noticed me and smiled in the way adults smiled before giving a problem to someone with less power. "Vale needs a guide. Mira Fen needs a team. Convenient." "I do not need a guide," I said. Needle spun toward Mira. She did not look at the green marks or ask what power I had used in the dungeon. She watched the compass nudge its lid away from the clerk's hand. "It does not like him," she said. The needle clicked. "That makes 2 of us," Mira added. Needle clicked twice. That was how Mira became the first person outside my group to treat it as a person. Her goal was not academy rank. The Scouts Guild had refused her certification because her father had vanished while mapping the closed roads beneath the central tower. She intended to earn enough verified discoveries to demand access to his final report. "I will map what your compass finds," she told me. "I will not tell it where to go." That distinction mattered. We tested it before entering the west tunnels. Mira hid a silver button in a hedge and asked me to find it. Needle pointed at the academy gate instead. "It cannot find objects," I said. Next, she locked us inside a practice maze, then silently walked 3 steps toward a concealed exit she already knew. Needle chose the ordinary door, not her shortcut. When she told me about the concealed door, the compass pointed toward it, but no green mark appeared after we used it. Observation: Needle could follow useful information, but it did not claim another person's discovery. Hypothesis: only an exit it found without guidance became a return point. For the final test, Mira entered a second maze she had never seen. She kept her map closed. I asked Needle for the way out. It led us through a curtain, under a rotating panel, and across a shallow pond.
When we reached the courtyard, a new mark warmed the rim. Mira smiled. "It has pride." Needle leaned toward her as if accepting a compliment. The west tunnels began beneath an unused kitchen. Our team now included Mira and the 4 students from the dungeon. The passages had once carried food and messages during a siege. Most ended in brick walls. Needle disliked every official arrow. It would study one, quiver, then point somewhere else with theatrical disgust. Mira copied its turns, but also checked air, dust, and stone. She noticed things the compass did not: fresh boot prints, wire traps, and a sweet smell that meant sleep moss. "It finds exits," she said, "but it does not find every danger on the road." That solved a weakness before the weakness could solve us. Our first objective was an old courier station worth 100 points. The station door stood 10 steps from us. I held Needle toward it. The black pointer turned back the way we had come. "It will not help us enter," I said. "Good," Mira replied. "I was worried it might make scouts unnecessary." She examined the lock, found a wire running from the handle, and followed it to a bucket of blue dye above the frame. The trap would not have hurt us. It would have marked our uniforms and canceled the stealth bonus. Mira cut the wire, Kessa's crow lifted the latch through a broken window, and we entered without the compass giving us a single useful direction. The station contained shelves of clay message tubes. Most were empty. A bronze route seal hung behind a glass panel. When Bram lifted it, shutters slammed over every window and the door locked. Needle immediately pointed at a flower shoot in the floor. "Now it helps," Mira said. "It has strict working hours." Warm mist from Oren's lizard showed air rising through the chute. It connected to a lower passage, but the opening was narrow and vertical. We could have broken the shutters. That would have been faster, and it would have destroyed an academy landmark. Instead, we tested the route. I lowered Tavi's rabbit in a basket. Needle stayed on the chute. Cass's wooden crow followed, carrying a cord. The pointer remained steady until the rabbit reached the bottom. Then it swung sideways. "The chute alone is not the exit," I said. "There is another turn below." Mira offered to climb down first. The instant she looked into the opening, Needle's pointer tilted toward her map case and began to shake. She understood. "If I find the lower path and tell you, it will count as my route. You will escape, but no return point. Your route would still save us." That answer made her study me. Perhaps she had expected me to care more about collecting green marks than about leaving safely. "We have time," she said. "Let it try. I will check hazards without choosing turns." We descended one by one. At the bottom, 3 brick channels led away. Needle picked the center. Mira crawled beside me, tapping bricks and smelling the air, but never moving ahead of the pointer. Twice she stopped my hand before I touched rusted needles hidden in the wall. The compass had pointed straight past both. "Danger on the road," she whispered. "Not the road itself," I agreed. The center channel ended beneath an iron grate. Above it, cooks moved around the abandoned banquet hall. The grate was a real opening but could not be lifted from below. Needle pressed its pointer against the glass as if trying to push harder. Bram's beetle could have moved it, but the beetle was too wide for the chute. Tavi's rabbit could fit, but not lift. Kess's crow could fly through the bars, but its wooden beak could not turn the heavy latch. Oren warmed the latch with steam. I wrapped Mira's bright cord around it through the bars. Kess's crow carried the other end over a ceiling hook and back down. All of us pulled. The hot latch rose enough for the rabbit to squeeze through. It hopped onto the release lever. The grate opened. Needle bounced against my palm. We climbed into the banquet hall, and a new green mark appeared. The Academy awarded the station seal and an extra discovery bonus. More important, the experiment refined the rule. Needle did not promise an easy route. It only promised one that could become a real exit through our actions. Its direction was a hypothesis until we made the path usable. Mira sketched the chute in her map. Needle leaned over the paper, following every line she drew, but when she tried to point out a faster return, it turned away with exaggerated innocence. "Proud and dishonest," she said. The lid snapped on the end of her charcoal. She laughed, and Needle kept the broken piece beneath its clasp for the rest of the day. In a quiet gallery beyond the station, Mira showed me why the Scouts Guild had rejected her father's last map. The paper displayed corridors that did not exist, doors drawn in open air, and the word "outside" beneath the central tower. "They said grief made him invent impossible routes," she said. "My mother stopped waiting after 8 years. I told everyone I stopped too." "But you kept the map." "Maps are promises. They say someone reached a place once, so someone else can reach it again." Needle grew still between us. That was the first time Mira touched its case. She did not grab it or turn it toward the map. She rested one finger beside the oldest 8-point mark and waited. Needle slowly leaned into the touch. I felt an unexpected sting of jealousy, which was ridiculous. Then Mira's finger brushed mine, and I became jealous of the compass for an entirely different reason. She pulled her hand back first. "Your impossible route and mine may be the same." Needle clicked once, as if it had known that long before us. Near noon, we reached a fork. The right passage sloped toward the route token worth 200 points. The left descended toward a collapsed dormitory from the old siege. Needle pointed left. "The objective is right," I reminded it. It struck the glass hard enough to make my finger sting. Mira crouched and touched the floor. 6 people passed here recently. Cheap academy boots, first-year size. Another low-ranked team had entered the wrong passage. "They may already be out," I said. We needed points. We needed my scholarship. I had promised the others we would reach first. Needle rotated toward the right for half a second, then dragged itself left again. It was not choosing the nearest opening for me. It was choosing an exit for everyone it considered part of the danger. I closed its lid. The compass forced it open. "That was rude," I said. It snapped at my thumb. Mira tried not to laugh. "It learned from you." I wanted to be angry at an object. Instead, I remembered the serpent chamber. Needle had refused to finish the route until Bram moved. Its rule included people I had not invited. Left, I decided. The collapsed dormitory was filling with sleep moss spores. 6 students were trapped behind a fallen beam. Their familiars were already sluggish. Mira tied a cloth over her mouth and crossed the unstable floor alone. She planted 3 bright cords along safe stones. "Your compass can find the exit," she called. "I can make sure everyone reaches it alive." Needle pointed not back the way we came, but toward a dry well. At its bottom, hidden beneath a rotten cover, an old water channel angled upward. The opening was too narrow for the fallen beam and too high for the weakest student to climb. We experimented under pressure. 1 student touched me. Needle stayed on the channel. 2 linked hands. It stayed. When the last trapped student joined the chain, the needle lowered and pressed against the glass as if bracing itself. It was willing to return a group, but the group had to remain connected and choose the same exit. The nearest stored point was the kitchen entrance. I pressed that green mark. "This will hurt," I warned. "Us?" Mira asked. "Mostly me." That is a very heroic answer for someone about to fall on his face. Needle spun backward. The dry well widened into a round view of copper pots and startled cooks. We crossed hand to hand. My mana drained so sharply that my knees stopped working. Mira caught my shoulders before I hit the floor. "Mostly you," she agreed. Needle lay silent in my palm. Its black pointer drooped. The crossing costed something too, though the system gave me no number for that price. I carried it into sunlight and left the lid open. After several minutes, it clicked once. The rescued students had found the root token before the collapse. Academy rules transferred rescue credit and their discovery bonus to our team.
Choosing them over the token earned more than taking the right passage would have. The tunnel clerk tried to call our detour unauthorized. Mira placed her map, the sleep moss samples, and 6 signed rescue statements on his desk. Needle added its opinion by pointing at the office door until the clerk approved every point. The reaction mattered because it changed policy. From then on, low-ranked teams could claim discovery credit for rescue routes, not only combat routes. By evening, we had reached 3rd place. Dorian met us on the ranking bridge. Solwing followed him with the red bond burning faintly around his neck. "You are exploiting an unregistered spatial artifact," Dorian said. "My family can have it confiscated." "Then your family can explain why your ceremony seal had fresh ink." His face tightened. That guess had landed closer than I expected. Before he answered, the narrow man from the ceremony stepped onto the bridge. His silver half-mask covered a burn along one cheek. A badge on his coat showed a cage around a star. "Curator Voss," he said. "Royal Office of Familiar Safety." Needles snapped shut. Voss's smile was patient. "Your reserve item matches an artifact lost in a spatial disaster 16 years ago. Such objects can imitate personality. Do not confuse movement with life." Mira moved between his hand and my compass. "It dislikes cages, official arrows, and him. That is more personality than most examiners have shown." "Charming," Voss said. "The law permits me to test dangerous familiars." He placed a crystal frame around Needle without touching it. Lines of pale light measured the compass. The needle remained still until Voss called it a tool. Then it struck the glass 3 times. Cracks raced through his crystal frame. Voss did not look surprised. He looked hungry. "A living wayfinder," he whispered. "At last." He offered me enough gold to keep Bram, Auron, Tavi, and Kess at the academy for 10 years. For 1 second, I could not breathe.
Needle opened its lid a fraction and pointed at Voss's silver case. It trembled so hard that the green marks blurred. It remembered that case. Voss noticed. His polite expression vanished. He closed his gloved hand around the case and walked away. Mira unrolled the copy of her father's final map. At its center was the same cage around a star symbol as Voss's badge. A line led beneath the central tower and ended in one word: outside. Episode 3. The first time Celine Arclight saw Needle open a road, she threw a silver ruler through it. The ruler vanished from the west tunnel and struck a copper pot in the academy kitchen. A cook shouted on the other side. Celine watched the round opening collapse, adjusted her blue spectacles, and wrote one sentence in her notebook. "Not teleportation," she said. I was still on one knee after losing nearly all my mana. It felt a lot like teleportation. Teleportation removes the distance between 2 points. Your compass folded an existing route until its exit touched us. Distance remained. It simply became someone else's problem. Mira picked up Celine's ruler from the kitchen and passed it back before the road closed. Do all heirs to great spatial mages introduce themselves by throwing things? Only when the thing costs less than the experiment. Celine was our age, but she spoke with the calm precision of someone correcting an ancient textbook. Her black hair was tied with 3 silver cords. Tiny geometric lights moved over her gloves whenever she measured space. Her mother was Chancellor Arclight, the kingdom's most respected spatial mage. Her father, Master Joran Arclight, had designed the Academy's sealed gate beneath the central tower. 16 years ago, the gate collapsed, 3 researchers vanished, and Joran was blamed. He had spent every year since trying to prove that the gate had been closed from the other side. Celine's goal was simple. She wanted to reproduce my crossings, clear her father's name, and understand why her family's magic could bend space, but Needle could make space behave like a road. I will not cut it open, she told me. Needle cracked its lid and watched her. I will not put it in a box. The lid opened farther. I would like to measure it while it is asleep. The lid snapped shut. Mira grinned. Negotiations are going well. We had 2 days before the final ranking trial. Celine offered us access to her family's practice chambers if I let her study Needle's limits. I agreed because Voss already knew more about the compass than I did, and ignorance was becoming more dangerous than curiosity. Celine built 3 identical stone rooms. Each had 1 door, 1 loose wall panel, and 1 ventilation shaft. In the first room, she told me which panel was loose. Needle pointed to it, but the root did not leave a mark. In the second, Celine kept silent. I asked for the exit. Needle pointed to the shaft, even though the loose panel was closer. Mira sent a mirror into the shaft and found that it opened directly outdoors. The panel opened into the next locked room. It was an opening, but not an exit from the whole confinement. In the third room, Celine placed a sleepy white mouse behind the panel. Needle chose the panel, waited for me to pick up the mouse, and then guided us from the next room to the courtyard. A green line appeared only after both of us were outside. It defines the problem before it defines the exit, Celine said. If you believe you are escaping one room, the panel works. If you understand that you are escaping the entire structure, it seeks farther. And it counts lives within the problem. Needle decides which lives count, I said. The compass clicked once. That answer pleased it and worried me. Our last test involved mana. Celine connected a blue crystal battery to my wrist with silver thread. It held enough power for several ordinary student spells. When I touched a remembered mark, Needle began to spin, but the battery's energy slid around it. It will only take yours, Celine said. The bond is part of the activation. She altered the thread so the battery poured power through my channels first. This time the compass accepted it. The road opened wider than usual. The green marks shone painfully bright, and Needle's black pointer bent at the tip. I shut the lid. That worked, Celine said, but it forced the bond to carry energy it had not accepted. Do not do it again until we understand the strain. Could it let us cross twice? Perhaps. A bridge can carry twice its limit too. The interesting question is whether you are standing on it when it breaks. Needle stayed close to Mira for the rest of the afternoon. The final ranking trial was the labyrinth relay beneath the Academy arena. Teams had 6 hours to collect seals from 4 zones and escape. Rescue points counted.
Route discoveries counted. Outside guidance was forbidden.
We entered in 3rd place. We needed nearly 1,000 points to pass Dorian. At the starting arch, Dorian touched the red seal around Solwing's bond. The griffin flinched. My father says Voss can remove your compass by midnight, Dorian told me. Sell it before the office takes it. At least then your friends can stay. Is that what he told you before selling you Solwing's bond? For once, Dorian had no quick answer. The relay began. Mira led us through the wind zone. She read scratches left by rotating walls and timed our run between gusts. Needle found a maintenance hatch when the main bridge folded away. Bram's beetle held it open. We collected the first seal in less than an hour. Celine solved the mirror zone by tracing the spatial reflections backward. Needle refused 3 doors that only returned to the same room. The fourth opened beside the second seal. We were gaining. Then bells began ringing inside the maze.
A voice announced directions to each team. Team Vale, turn north at the blue lamp. Team Vale, descend at the broken statue. Needle spun wildly. Every announced route had become outside help. Even when the directions were false, they contaminated our discoveries. We could escape, but we could not create new return points. That is not part of the relay, Celine said. Mira found a silver listening crystal inside a lamp. It carried the cage around a star symbol. Voss was not trying to beat us. He was trying to prove Needle unreliable while preventing it from growing. We ignored the announcements and reached the third zone. A wall of black glass sealed behind us. The room had 6 doors, each marked with a team crest. Our crest covered a corridor full of slow iron wheels. Dorian's door showed a clear white passage. Needle pointed through Dorian's door. We cannot use another team's route, Bram said. The compass does not care about the competition, Mira replied.
We had a remembered point near the arena entrance. If I opened it now, we could leave, rest, and return through our last anchor in the mirror zone. 1 crossing out and 1 crossing back would cost more mana than I had. With Celine's battery, perhaps we could do both. I thought of our scholarship deadline. I thought of Dorian's lead. I thought of Voss taking Needle at midnight. Connect the battery, I told Celine. We tested that once. The needle bent. If we lose today, Voss gets it anyway. Needle snapped its lid shut. I opened it. It closed again. The white passage is the exit it chose, Mira said. Why are you asking for a different one? Because Dorian's crest could lock his door against us. Because I did not trust him. Because I wanted control more than I wanted an answer. I fixed Celine's silver thread around my wrist. Open the entrance route. Needle refused. I pressed the green mark and held its lid with my thumb. The battery discharged. Needle screamed without a voice.
Its glass rang. A circular road tore open, showing the arena entrance, but the edges flickered between stone and empty gray space. Bram stepped toward it. Mira knocked his hand away. It is not stable. The road folded sideways. Half the room stretched with it. Kess and Tavi fell against the black wall. Celine cut the battery thread, but the power had already reached the compass. Its black pointers split down the middle. Every green mark went dark. The false road collapsed. A line of gray emptiness struck Mira and threw her through Dorian's door just as it slammed shut. I heard her hit the floor on the other side. Mira! No answer came. Needle lay open in my hand, both halves of its pointer aimed in different directions. For the first time since the ceremony, it did not move when I spoke. The iron wheels in our corridor began to turn. Voss's voice replaced the trial announcements. A tool forced beyond its design becomes a hazard, he said. Remain still. My officers will retrieve it.
He had built the trap around my worst decision and waited for me to make it. Celine looked at the cracked glass. Anger made her voice quieter. I said the bond was carrying energy it had not accepted. Can you repair it? I can repair brass and glass. I cannot repair permission. The wheels advanced. We could not wait for the office. I tied Needle around my neck with its lid open. Then we take its chosen door. That door is closed, Bram said. Doors are not the same as exits. We will find out why it chose the passage before I broke it. We entered the wheel corridor and moved without the compass. Bram's shield beetle jammed the first gear. Orin's steam showed which wheels were hottest and moving fastest. Tavi's rabbit found the grease that had turned bitter with metal dust. Kess's crow carried Mira's bright cord through a gap above the final wheel. The cord led into the ceiling. Mira had left us a trail from the other side. We climbed between the gears instead of racing past them. At the top, Celine found the edge where Dorian's corridor touched ours. She could not open a portal, but she could loosen the seam. Bram drove his shield into it. We pushed through. Mira sat against the wall, with one ankle wrapped in her scarf. Beside her, Solwing clawed at a red chain pulling him toward the final zone. Dorian had gone ahead alone.
"Needle chose this route because of him," Mira said. "Solwing is trapped in the false bond."
The red chain was not a physical prison, but it dragged the griffin along a physical corridor toward danger. Needle had not been offering us Dorian's easy path. It had been pointing toward a life that needed the same exit. I knelt and placed the broken compass before Solwing. "I am sorry," I told it. "I made your choice smaller than mine. I will follow even if there is no mark, no class, and no rank at the end." One half of the pointer twitched toward Solwing. The other remained still.
That was enough. I lifted Mira onto my back. Bram supported her injured leg. We followed the trembling half-needle while the official announcements shouted wrong turns. When arrows appeared, I covered the compass glass so it would not see them. When Voss offered a safe surrender, I kept walking. The trail led through the fire zone, away from the fourth seal. Dorian stood on a stone platform ahead, trying to command Solwing across a ring of blue flame. The griffin had planted all four paws and refused. "Move!" Dorian pulled the red seal. "We need the last crest!" Behind Solwing, smoke poured into a cage holding two trial workers. A control crystal had shattered. The safe exit lay across the flame ring, but the workers could not reach it. Needle pointed at them. Dorian looked from us to the ranking crest. He understood the choice. For a second, I thought he might make the right one. He seized the crest. We went to the cage. Celine bent the heat away with angled planes of space. Orin filled them with steam, creating a cool tunnel. Bram opened the cage. Tavi guided the coughing workers. Kess's crow carried the broken control crystal so the exit doors would recognize an emergency. I carried Mira and held Needle where it could see everyone. We crossed the arena gate together. The instant the last worker reached open air, warmth returned to the compass. The split pointer drew itself into one line. The crack in the glass remained, thin and silver, but all the green marks lit again. The system spoke through our joined pulse. Trust restored by chosen action. The second hidden class had opened, Root Lord. It did not grant me a portal spell. Instead, the green marks on Needle's rim separated in my mind like familiar voices. I understood what kind of escape each route had represented. From a room, from a hunt, from a collapse, from abandonment. Needle could choose among its remembered exits according to the problem we agreed to solve.
Celine reached for the cracked glass, then stopped.
"May I finish the repair?"
Needle considered her hand. It turned the silver crack toward her but snapped its lid when she tried to polish the line away.
"It wants the damage left visible,"
Mira said.
"A record of the failed test,"
Celine replied. She sealed the edge without hiding it.
"That is better research than pretending the failure never happened."
Needle allowed her to hold it while I helped the rescued workers. Celine had begun the day wanting proof that a living road could be measured. She ended it by accepting that measurement required permission. That choice returned her to Needle's trust as surely as mine had. The Academy canceled Dorian's fourth seal when the illegal red bond was revealed during the rescue review. Our team received route, rescue, and sabotage evidence rewards. On the 5th evening, the board changed. Team Vale rose from last place to first. Bram shouted. Kess's crow flew in a crooked circle. Mira leaned on one crutch and tried to pretend she was not smiling. Celine only adjusted her spectacles, but she wrote the new ranking twice. Voss did not come to confiscate Needle at midnight. He stole the key to the central tower instead. We discovered it because Needle pointed beneath the floor again. This time, its repaired pointer did not tremble with fear. It pulled toward the sealed tower with such force that the compass slid across my palm. Mira opened her father's map. Celine placed her silver ruler over the line marked outside, both aligned with the same blank place under the tower. Then a girl's voice came through the hairline crack in Needle's glass. "Wayfinder," she whispered from impossibly far away. "Please, our sky has no exit left." Episode 4. Needle tried to drag me into the central tower before breakfast. It hooked its clasp around my sleeve, pointed at the locked doors, and pulled with the determination of a very small horse. When I resisted, it snapped at my cuff.
"We need a plan," I said. The needle aimed at the doors harder. "That is a direction, not a plan." Mira arrived on one crutch, carrying 3 coils of bright cord. "I think it plans to continue until your shirt gives up." Celine followed with a case of rulers and folding mirrors. She had repaired Needle's glass, but left the silver crack visible. "The tower key was taken by a royal officer. Entering without permission would be illegal." Needle turned toward a cellar window. Celine adjusted her spectacles. "I was making an observation, not an objection." We entered through the old kitchen tunnels. Bram, Oren, Tavi, and Kess stayed above to present Voss's listening crystal to Headmaster Crow. If the office called us thieves, our friends would make sure the academy heard both sides. Mira led despite her ankle. She never stepped where she had not first touched the stone with her crutch. Her father's map showed a staircase that the current plans omitted.
We found it behind a wine rack, sealed with mortar newer than the surrounding wall. Needle pointed at it. "Your turn," I told Celine. She placed 2 silver rulers along the mortar and bent the distance between them. The strip of wall became thin as paper. Mira slid a knife through the seam and cut the hidden latch. No one created a portal. We simply gave Needle's real exit enough room to be used. The stair descended beneath the central tower. At the bottom stood an arch large enough for a giant, carved into black stone. There was no door inside it. There was only more wall. Needle pointed through the blank arch. Not toward a crack, not toward a tunnel, straight out of the world. Mira unrolled her father's map. The line marked outside ended at our feet. Beside it, in smaller writing, he had added, "Not outside the tower, outside Avar." Celine touched the arch and closed her eyes. Her geometric lights spread across the stone. "There is folded distance here, more than I can measure." My father's gate did not collapse. Someone wrapped it around the entire kingdom and tied it shut. A slow clap came from the stairs. Voss descended with 6 officers in gray coats. The silver case from the ranking bridge hung at his side. Examiner Oren followed them, unable to meet my eyes. "Joran Arclight's daughter," Voss said. "Tomas Fenn's daughter. And the boy who fell between worlds. The gate has gathered every missing piece for me." Mira's hand tightened around her crutch. "Where is my father?" "He crossed 16 years ago. Whether he survived is one reason I intend to reopen the gate." That answer was too precise to be a lie, and too incomplete to be mercy. The officers raised crystal cages. Needle shook against my palm. It remembered their pale light. Celine stepped closer to the compass, not in front of it. "May I measure the arch through you?" Needle turned once toward her silver ruler, then back to the wall. Permission. Celine connected no battery. She laid the ruler beside Needle and let their fields touch. 8 lines appeared in the blank arch. 7 ended immediately. The 8th stretched into darkness filled with distant blue stars. A hand struck the other side. The wall rippled. "Wayfinder!" the girl's voice called again. Needle sprang from my palm. Its leather cord caught around my wrist. The black pointer struck the silver crack in its glass. Green light flowed from every remembered mark toward the strange 8-point mark that had existed before me. Voss opened his case. Inside lay a ring of white metal, exactly sized to clamp around Needle. "Do not let it complete the route," he ordered. The officers threw their cages. Mira's bright cord snapped across 2 frames and pulled them aside. Celine folded a 3rd frame into its own empty center. I caught Needle as the old mark burned under my thumb. The choice was mine, but the request was its. "You want to go back," I said. The compass clicked once. "Then we go together." I pressed the old mark. Needle spun backward. My mana vanished. The blank wall rolled open into a circle of violet sky, white towers, and a plaza buried under silver ash. The road had been found long before I held the compass. It was returning to an exit from its own past. Mira looped her cord around my waist. Celine caught Mira's hand. We crossed as a chain while Voss shouted behind us. The gate closed on his silver case, cutting the strap. The case landed in the ash beside us. I fell to both knees. A narrow sword touched my shoulder. "If you are servants of the closed crown," a girl said, "you chose a poor way to arrive." She wore a torn white traveling coat over blue armor. A small crown of dark metal held back her pale gold hair. She looked our age, but the tired steadiness in her eyes belonged to someone who had spent too many nights making decisions for frightened people. Needle pointed at her. She lowered the sword. "Little Wayfinder," she whispered. The compass pulled free of my fingers and swung from its cord until it bumped her wrist. She touched the cracked glass with 2 fingers. "You came back." Needle clicked so quickly that it sounded like rain. The girl's name was Lyra Astor, Crown Princess of Kale, the last open city in a world called Astera. Her personal goal was not to save her throne. She wanted to reopen the ancient roads and move food, medicine, and people between the 8 cities before their failing sky barrier cut them apart. "My mother sent the Wayfinder through the gate 16 years ago," she explained as we moved into the ruins. "She told it to find someone who could choose an exit without choosing who deserved it." Mira glanced at me. "It took its time." Needle snapped at her sleeve without any real anger. Lyra smiled for the first time. "It always hated being hurried." She did not treat Needle like a royal possession. When it leaned toward her, she offered her wrist. When it turned back to me, she let it go. That mattered more than the title she gave it. Wayfinders, Lyra told us, were not forged. Long ago, travelers crossed the first spatial road so often that the road learned the difference between a door and an escape. Pieces of that living road took small forms. Some became keys. One became a compass with no north because north had no meaning between worlds. Its rule had never changed. It pointed to a real way out of true confinement. When it discovered and completed that escape without another guide, the exit became part of its living memory. A bonded traveler could fold the remembered route back, but the effort emptied the traveler's mana. "It cannot create an exit where none exists," Lyra said. "It cannot lead an army into a locked city, find treasure, or make a prison stop being a prison. It can only recognize the way out and remember the road after it is walked." "And if the prison is a world?" I asked. Lyra looked up. The violet sky was crossed by dark lines. They formed a vast cage from horizon to horizon. "Then it must find the edge of the world." The closed crown had once been a defense built into Astera's road network. When creatures from the emptiness between worlds attacked, the crown sealed every gate at once. It saved Astera. Then it refused to open again. It had followed its final order for 16 years. No passage, no risk, no exceptions. The crown was not evil. It was a frightened authority with enough power to make fear permanent. Each year, the sealed barrier pressed lower. Roads between Asteran cities failed. Crops beneath the violet sky weakened. Kale might survive another winter. The outer cities would not. My council wants one gate opened for the royal families, Lyra said. I refused. If there is an exit, it belongs to every city. Needle rested against her hand. I understood why it had answered her voice. We took shelter in an old station beneath the plaza. Its walls showed painted maps of 8 worlds connected by gold roads. One was Avar. One symbol was the same 8-point sign that had killed me on Earth. What is that world? I asked. Lyra studied it. No name remains. The old records call it the Far Road. It stopped answering centuries ago. Needle's ancient mark glowed. My death had not been random. At the exact moment the sign fell, something had opened a route from the Far Road. My soul had crossed it into Avar. Needle had recognized that crossing at the academy and awakened for me. I did not know who had opened the route or why. Needle did not point toward answers. It pointed toward exits. That mystery would have to wait. Mira found her father's knife stuck into the station map. A message was scratched beneath it. Went to the sky hinge. Voss lied about the collapse. Follow the birds. Her fear became a decision. My father may be alive at the hinge. I am going there. Celine found her father's gate calculations carved beside the message. They showed the Avar gate had been stable until an office control ring forced it closed. Voss caused the collapse, she said. He trapped the first team here, then blamed my father. Lyra drew her sword. Then he will come through after us. The station contains a manual road key. We heard metal unfold in the plaza. Voss had found another way. His white control ring expanded inside the dead gate, using the residue of Needle's crossing. Examiner Oren and 3 officers stepped through. Voss followed, carrying a crystal engine on his back. My sister was on the first expedition, he told us. Your mothers and fathers treated the gate as a living road. They waited for consent while people starved on both sides. I built a device that gives roads commands. His reason was grief shaped into a cage. It did not make him foolish. It made him certain. Your device caused the collapse, Celine said. It revealed a design flaw. A road that can refuse its owner is a danger. Needle slammed its lid hard enough to echo. The closed crown noticed the new opening. Dark light poured down the lines in the sky. A voice filled every stone in the plaza. Foreign route detected. Exit forbidden. Safety requires closure. The dead gate began crushing Voss's white ring. He drove his crystal engine into the ground and held the passage open by force. Cracks spread across the station ceiling. We had 3 different plans. Mira wanted to follow the painted birds to the sky hinge, find her father, and map a physical path before the crown changed the terrain. Celine wanted to reach the gate controls and separate Voss's forced road from Needle's living route before both broke. Lyra wanted to warn the 8 cities and bring their old signal towers online. A world could not share an exit if most of its people did not know it existed. All 3 were right. So they acted without waiting for me.
Mira tied one end of her bright cord around the station pillar and vanished along the bird marks. Celine climbed into the gate mechanism with 2 rulers between her teeth. Lyra ran for the royal signal mirror on the plaza roof. I stayed with Needle. It pointed after Lyra, then Mira, then Celine. The black pointers swung faster, caught between lives moving toward different dangers. You cannot choose one exit for 3 different problems, I said. The compass struck its cracked glass. As a route lord, I felt its remembered paths. An exit from a trap was not the same as an exit from abandonment. A safe door for Kale alone would not solve Astera's confinement. To define the problem correctly, we had to treat the whole closed world as one prison. The exit could not be the dead gate behind us. That only led to Avar and could carry one linked group before my mana failed. The real exit had to release the crown itself. Lyra's signal mirror flashed from the roof. One by one, distant lights answered across the dark horizon. 8 cities were listening. Celine called from inside the mechanism. The barrier is folded through a single physical joint, the sky hinge. If the joint opens, every old road can breathe again. Mira's cord pulled tight toward the northern ruins. 3 sharp tugs meant she had found a path. Needle pointed along it. We ran. The route crossed roofs while the streets folded shut below us. The crown raised walls to contain the foreign path. Needle did not point through them until Mira found a real gap. Celine thinned a seam, or Lyra opened an old royal latch. Each heroine solved a different part of the road. The compass remained what it had always been, the one thing that knew which opening truly led out. At the edge of Kale, we found the sky hinge. It was a tower lying sideways across the horizon, one end rooted in the city and the other disappearing into the dark cage overhead.
Thousands of black chains ran from it into the sky. At its base, a gray-haired scout defended a control wheel from shadow creatures made by the crown.
"Dad,"
Mira breathed. Tomas Finn looked up. He had aged 16 years, but his grin matched hers. "You took the long route." Mira laughed once, half joy and half anger, then jumped from the roof and joined his fight. There was no time for a reunion. That made it real. Tomas had spent years mapping the crown's moving walls. He knew every path to the hinge, which meant Needle could use his map but could not record the exit. For the impossible route to become a permanent return point, the compass had to find the final way without his guidance. "I can get you to the last platform," Tomas said. After that, the crown erased the road. That was enough. We climbed the sideways tower. Voss followed through the ruins with his engine, forcing straight openings where the crown tried to close him in. His method was faster. Behind him, every forced seam shattered. At the last platform, there was no path, only the dark barrier curved above us like the inside of a locked shell, Needle pointed upward.
"There is no door," Celine said.
"There was no door under the tower either," I answered.
"There was still an edge."
Lyra placed her royal seal against the platform. 8 city lights converged across the sky. Mira tied her cord around all 4 of us, not to guide Needle, but to make our shared danger clear. Celine traced the barrier's physical fold and exposed a line thinner than hair. Needle leaped from my hand and planted its clasp into that line. Its brass rim unfolded. 8 points extended from the small circle, each longer than a sword. The black pointer grew into a narrow bridge of dark metal aimed at the seam in the sky. Needle had chosen to transform before I ordered anything. The system gave no new class, not yet. Celine stared at the energy running through its cracked glass. "It is making itself part of the hinge. If the crown closes while it is extended, the compass will break with the road." That was the higher price. Needle could point the way out for an entire world, but it had to place its own body in the opening. The closed crown pulled every black chain tight. The seam began to close around it. Episode 5. The transformed compass pointed at the one place the world refused to open. Its 8 brass arms strained against the sky hinge. The black pointer had become a bridge aimed into a line of white light. Around it, the closed crown pulled thousands of chains across the violet sky. "Exit forbidden," the crown said through the tower. "Unknown space contains unacceptable danger." "Known space contains people who are starving," Lyra answered. Her voice carried through the royal signal. 8 city lights burned on the horizon. One flickered and nearly went dark. Needle's silver crack widened. I grabbed 2 brass points and tried to pull it free of the closing seam. The black pointer swung around and struck my wrist. "You will break,"
It struck me again. Mira looped a bright cord around my waist before a tremor threw us from the platform. Her father anchored the other end to the control wheel.
"It knows the price," she said. "The question is whether you know what it wants."
I did. Needle had spent every stage of our journey making the same choice. It had waited for Bram in the Serpent Tunnel. It had abandoned route points to rescue 6 students. It had chosen Solwing over the ranking crest. It had returned to Astera because Lyra's world was trapped. I kept treating that principle as a useful feature. To Needle, it was a promise. It wanted the exit open for everyone. "Then I will not pull you back," I said. "But I will not stand here and call your sacrifice obedience. Tell me where you need me." The giant pointer lowered until its tip touched my chest. The system spoke through both of us. Control surrendered, purpose shared. The 3rd hidden class opened, King of Spatial Roads. No roads appeared at my command. I gained no spell for crossing space. Instead, every remembered exit inside Needle became clear, and Needle felt the problem I chose without needing an order. Astera was not a room. It was not one city or one gate. It was a whole world trapped inside a safety barrier. We agreed that the exit had to release the world without abandoning anyone within it. The black pointer drove deeper into the seam. Voss reached the platform before it opened. His forced gait had torn a straight path up the tower. Gray light leaked from the crystal engine on his back. Dorian followed him, holding the white control ring. Solwing stumbled behind, bound by the red chain. "Clamp the Wayfinder," Voss ordered. Dorian looked at the transformed compass. "You said it was a defective artifact." "I said what made you useful. Put on the ring."
Dorian raised it toward Needle. Solwing cried out. The false bond pulled him forward, but he dug his claws into the platform. Dorian saw the red chain cut light across the griffin's feathers. He saw Lyra's distant cities, Mira's father at the wheel, and the living compass holding the sky apart with its own body. Dorian lowered the ring.
"I knew the ceremony seal was altered," he said to me. "I told myself Solwing had still chosen the stronger master."
He opened his fist and smashed his family seal against the control wheel. The red gem cracked. Solwing tore free. The griffin spread his wings and struck Voss's crystal engine with both hind paws. Voss fell, but the white control ring flew from Dorian's hand and landed around Needle's central glass. It tightened automatically. The giant pointer jerked away from the sky seam and aimed at the dead gate to Avar. Voss's engine had one final command: return the asset to containment. The sky hinge rotated backward.
Celine drove her silver rulers between the control ring and the brass. "The ring is folding every possible route into the one Voss selected. I can delay it, not remove it." Needle's lid, now as wide as a shield, began to close on the ring. It had bitten Orin at the ceremony, refused my satchel, and cracked Voss's first measuring frame. Its personality had not vanished with its size. "You heard it," I told Celine. "Delay, please. Needle will handle the rude hand." The lid slammed down. The control ring cracked in half. One piece shot across the platform and trapped Voss's sleeve against the wall. The other fell into the dark sky. Needle's lid opened with a slow, satisfied creak. Mira laughed. Still dramatic. The compass clicked once, loud as thunder. The closed crown sent shadow wardens down its chains. They had no faces, only smooth helmets and long arms made of barrier light. They surrounded the hinge without attacking. The crown's voice changed.
Beneath the stone calm, I heard a woman's exhaustion.
16 years ago, invasion probability exceeded survival threshold. Closure preserved 4 million lives. Opening repeats unacceptable risk. Voss stopped pulling at his trapped sleeve. "Lysa?" The Shadow Wardens turned toward him. Celine read the old symbols moving along the control wheel. The Crown absorbed the first gatekeepers when they sealed it. Their decisions became part of its authority. Voss's sister had not been waiting in a prison for him to command open. She had chosen to help close the world during the attack. A part of her still guarded it. "I came to bring you home," Voss said. "Home remained unsafe," the Crown answered. Voss looked at his broken engine and finally understood the mistake every enemy had made. He believed a road was safe only when someone controlled it. The Crown believed a world was safe only when every road was closed. Neither trusted travelers to choose. The platform split beneath his feet.
Voss fell. I caught his wrist. My body slid toward the edge. Mira's cord pulled tight around my waist. Tomas braced at the wheel. Celine caught my shoulder. Lyra locked her royal sword through a crack in the stone and held Celine. "Let him go," Dorian said, then flinched at his own words. Needle pointed at Voss. Of course it did. An exit that abandoned the man trying to cage it was not Needle's exit. Solwing dove below the platform, caught Voss by the back of his coat, and lifted him onto solid stone. Dorian helped pull him away from the edge. The Crown watched through 100 shadow faces. "That is the difference," I gasped. "An open road can be dangerous. So can a wall. Safety is not the absence of exits. It is people who refuse to leave each other behind." The Crown did not accept a speech as proof. It demanded evidence. External current approaching. Unknown entities at barrier. Opening risks entry. Dark shapes moved beyond the white seam. The old danger still existed. Celine climbed onto Needle's black pointer and held her rulers toward the shapes. Light formed angles around her. "The current is flowing past Astera, not toward it. Voss's forced gate attracted them. If we close his torn path and open the original hinge, the pressure will move outward." "Can you prove it?" Lyra asked. "I need measurements from beyond the barrier." Mira tied a fresh cord around herself. "Then someone scouts beyond it." "No," I said. She gave me the same look Needle used when I mistook fear for a plan. "My goal is to map the roads my father could not finish. Your compass finds the exit. I find out what waits along it. Those are different jobs." She crossed the giant pointer before I could argue again. At the white seam, she drove 3 mirrored pins into its edge. Reflections showed the dark current moving from east to west. None turned toward the opening until Voss's engine pulsed. Celine raised her hand. Her rulers snapped into a triangle around the engine. She did not destroy it. She folded its forced passage back through its own control ring. The engine swallowed its gray light and went silent. Outside the seam, the shadows drifted away. "My father's design was not unstable," Celine said. Her voice shook only once. "Control made it unstable." The Crown released one chain. The seam widened a finger's width. Lyra lifted her royal seal toward the 8 city lights. "Astera, this is not an evacuation for the Crown. Every city must unlock its road tower. Every tower must accept every traveler. If one refuses, Kale refuses with it." The first distant light opened into a ring, then the second. The third remained dark. A frightened governor answered through the signal. "If we lower our wall, refugees will take our winter stores." Lyra could have commanded him. Instead, she told him the truth. "Yes, then Kale will share its stores, and we will be hungry together instead of safe beside your graves." The third light opened. All 8 road towers formed a circle across the horizon. For the first time, the entire world agreed that it faced one confinement. Needle's green marks blazed. The sky hinge had a physical joint, a line Celine had exposed. It had a traversable road, confirmed by Mira. It had the consent of the cities, given through Lyra. It had an immediate danger that made opening an escape rather than an invasion. Every condition of Needle's one rule was finally true. The compass pointed the world toward its exit. Its giant black pointer rotated. The sideways tower moved with it.
Stone screamed across the horizon as the sky hinge aligned the old world road with the white seam. The dark cage overhead slid like a lid being pushed from a box. I pressed both hands to Needle's center. The crossing took my mana. It always took nearly all of it. Becoming a king of spatial roads did not reduce the price. This time, the route was large enough that the pull lifted me from the platform. Light ran out of my arms and across all 8 brass points. My vision dimmed. Needle could have taken the last spark and completed the opening. I felt the choice in our bond. It refused. It would not find an exit by leaving me behind. The road stopped 1 handspan short of the seam. "Stubborn circle," I whispered. The lid moved toward my fingers, a weak attempt to bite me. We needed no new power. We needed the logical consequence we had tested in the West tunnels. A linked group could share 1 crossing if everyone held the same route. "Mira, the cords!" She understood first. Her bright lines already connected us to Tomas, the control wheel, and the signal mirror. She tied them into Needle's outer points. Across Astera, scouts at the 8 towers copied her pattern with old road cables. Celine changed the angles so the cables touched 1 spatial route instead of merely crossing in the sky. Lyra placed her hand on the royal seal and asked every city to do the same. Millions could not stand in a single hand-to-hand chain. They did not need to. Their towers, cables, and open gates formed 1 continuous physical network. Every person sheltering behind those roads was part of the same escape. Power answered from the towers and turned the hinge, never entering my bond. Each keeper had opened the local latch. Consent traveled along the chain. The compass took no second crossing. It completed the first. The black pointer pierced the white seam. The sky opened. Violet cloud rolled outward through an enormous 8-point gap. Fresh blue light poured in. The dark lines of the closed crown loosened, then rearranged around the opening. They did not vanish. They became a gate instead of a cage. Air rushed across Astera. Bells rang in every city as the old roads unfolded. The outer current continued safely past the world. Needle finished the route. A new green mark appeared around its entire rim, larger than all the others.
It had found and recorded an exit from a world. The Shadow Wardens lowered their heads. The closed crown spoke in Lisa's tired voice and its own stone voice together. Safe passage demonstrated. Permanent closure revoked. Living Wayfinder recognized as Royal Keeper of Open Roads. Voss sat very still. "Can she leave?" Celine studied the crown's lines. "The part of your sister inside it is a memory and a choice, not a prisoner we can pull free." Lisa's shadow touched Voss's shoulder. "I chose this watch, brother. You chose too long for me." His control had cost him 16 years. Acceptance took only a moment, but it looked harder. He removed his office badge and placed it on the stone. "I will testify about the first gate," he said, "and the ceremony." Voss revealed that he had ordered Orin to bend Solwing's bond toward Dorian. "My soul carried the trace of a world crossing."
The ceremony array had detected it, and Voss needed me unclaimed so the sleeping Wayfinder on the reserve table would choose me. He had planned to let me awaken it, measure 1 route, and then declare it dangerous. Dorian had not created the plan, but he had accepted the stolen bond because it benefited him. Back in Avar, he surrendered his rank and faced the Academy Tribunal. Solwing refused a new bond for the time being. He stayed near Dorian by choice, which was a harder lesson than punishment. Celine sent her measurements and Voss's confession through the restored gate. Her father's name was cleared before sunset. He answered with a message consisting of 17 questions and one badly hidden line saying he was proud of her. Mira sat with Tomas on the edge of the hinge and compared their maps. They argued over 3 turns within the first minute. Then he gave her his Scout's Guild pin. "Certification?" she asked. "No," Tomas said. "You surpassed that years ago. This is so they stop asking me to grade you." Lyra reopened the roads between the 8 cities. She postponed her coronation until every outer district received a supply route. When the council objected to an Avar student attending royal meetings, she appointed me ambassador of unreasonable exits. "That is not a real title," I said. "It is now." Needle began folding back into its small form. The 8 sword-length points slid into the brass rim. The bridge curled into the black pointer. When it landed in my palm, it was a little larger, and its glass was clear for the first time. Tiny roads moved beneath the surface like green threads. Its lid still snapped on my thumb. "Royal Keeper," I said. "Very dignified." It snapped again. My team returned to Avar through the central gate after my mana recovered. The academy could no longer threaten our scholarships. Our first-place score remained on the board, but it felt smaller than the routes now opening between worlds.
Mira walked beside me, no longer using a crutch. She tied a short, bright cord to Needle's clasp.
"So it does not escape your shirt again," she said.
Her fingers stayed against mine for a second longer than the knot required. Celine claimed the next place at my side because the new glass required continuous observation. When I asked whether that meant every day, she looked away and said reliable research could not be rushed. Lyra stood in the restored gate, one hand on her sword and one on the frame.
"The next time you visit, try arriving without falling at my feet."
"That depends on the mana price."
"Then I will be ready to catch you."
Needle pointed between all 3 of them, spun once, and hid beneath its lid. Even a living road knew when a situation had too many possible directions. That evening, I took it to the roof of the central tower. For the first time, the compass had a north mark. It ignored it completely. The ancient 8-point mark from my first life began to glow. Needle pointed above the clouds, toward a place with no visible door. The new world exit mark aligned with the old far road mark. A slit no wider than my finger opened in the air. Through it, I saw rain striking a city street on Earth. The travel shop was still there. The compass sign hung above it, whole and shining, though I had watched it fall. On the dark window, someone had written a message backward so it could be read from my side. "We found your exit. Now find ours." Needle clicked with the eager rhythm it used before an open gate. Astera had not been the end of its mystery. It had been the first route large enough to point us home.